What's up guys and welcome back. My name is Jake Towell and this is my art series where I share with you guys some art pieces throughout my career, and today we have a piece with a ton of lore and really cool characters. There's so much to talk about within this piece, so many really sick colors in this one as well. So I'm super hyped to present to you guys Beak. Again, there's tons of lore, so we'll get to that in the fully rendered image, so make sure you stay tuned for that towards the end of the video. Everything derives around the dude in the middle with the 6 beaks. He is the leader, he is the creator, he is the mob boss. Before I can get into the lore of this piece, first things first, we got to talk about the sketch phase. So let's get right into it. Here we have a very chaotic, not so obvious exactly what I wanted to do, rough sketch phase. That's what sketch phases are all about anyways, so I can't be too upset about that. Overall, the sketch phase, you can see every character I've laid out. I think the thing I have most fleshed out and most realized is the 6-beaked dude in the middle of the composition, as that was the first thing I illustrated in this piece and I really liked him a lot, so I expanded the canvas and figured out how I could fully fill this canvas and add as much super sick details and lore as possible. Overall sketch phase, not too solid, but I had everything down that I needed to, and I think in the line work phase is where I really figured out where I wanted to go with this piece. So speaking of, let's get right into the line work phase. Honestly, there was so much going on within this piece. I'm really proud of how solid and well spaced everything is in this line work phase. It really looks like a super solid fleshed out line work. And again, I'm showing you guys pieces in the order I made them in time, and this was still a couple years ago. And at this point, I really honed in on my line work and I was really getting super good at my own style, and I really figured out what my identity was within my art. And I think this is a very prime example of me really knowing exactly how I wanted to represent my style within my technique. And overall, this line work, super clean. I wouldn't change anything about this line work. This is such a chaotic piece, like I said, and it really turned out super clean, really nice. And again, the line work alone could be a piece in and of itself. So overall line work, super hyped on it. Really glad I figured it out from the sketch phase. So without further ado, let's get into that lore I talked about in the fully rendered image. Before we get into the lore, I did want to show you guys 6-beak himself. This was the first part of this illustration that I drew, and I really enjoyed him, like I said in the sketch phase, and knew I had to expand upon this character. I really love this character. He's super sick. It would also make for a really dope sticker, but here is him soloed out from the canvas just so you can get a better look at 6-beak here. As I said, he is the central point of the composition for many reasons, even for lore, and I just think he looks really dope. So yeah, I wanted to show you guys that before the fully rendered piece that we are talking about today. All right, ladies and gentlemen, here we have 6-beak. If it wasn't obvious enough, it's because he has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 beaks. And the lore of this piece is he is actually a mob boss, and all these dudes around him are his henchmen. We have 4 henchmen within this piece, all deriving from his beaks, which we'll get to in a second here. So he is the leader of the 6-beak gang, and he has a pretty scary and tough and dangerous crew. So I'm really hyped to be talking to you guys about this crew. First things first, let's talk about 6-beak. Obviously, he's a bird-esque alien type dude. He has one eye in the middle here, which is pretty cool. His brain popping out the top of his feathered purple head. I really love the contrast between the purple and orange here within his beak. Really cool colors. We have a ring going inside of his head at the top, very Jake Towell styled touch for the 6-beak here. And as you can see within his beaks, from the singled beak image, I have changed it to fit this composition. Here we have just 2 loops going around, chained to 2 loops going around the second beak, another 2 chains looped around. You can see a tongue coming out of this beak, creating this guy, but we'll get to that in a second. This beak stabbing that dude in the eyeball. This beak, just 2 loops, and this one cracking open. You can see that loop snapped off, and so did his beak, creating the guy in the corner. But we will start in the top left corner here with Starving Serpent, and he gets his name from his open torso at the bottom here. You can see his rib cage and spine and heart here, which is super cool. And what's something something really cool about this serpent here as well is the blood I designed for him isn't red, but this really cool greenish blue color with colored line, and it looks super cool in contrast to his really blue looking head. Another thing cool about this serpent is he has 2 mouths layered on top. Shout out double mouthed plant dragon. If you haven't seen that video, definitely go check that out. That's one of my favorite pieces of all time. Definitely took inspiration from that. As you can see, we have a lot of sharp teeth here. He also has a tongue. This tooth is stabbing through his tongue. You can see blood dripping down his tongue there. We also have this really crazy looking harpoon or key going under that first mouth through the top lip, one of the top lips into the top lip where his eyeballs are at there. You can also see there's like these teeth above his eyeball lids, which is pretty cool, kind of just adding them along the backside of him as well as the top of his head. He really is a super sick looking serpent. Coming out of his mouth, he's breathing like this salmon colored smoke, which you can see is filling up the top of the composition there around this tag. I guess I should also address the tag. It's attached with this chain to this loop to 6Beak, kind of housing my logo there. Moving down on the serpent, zooming into his heart in the middle of his rib cage, you can see the veins are actually attached to the bones, which is a really cool little detail there. You can see it entering the bones there as well. But if you follow that spinal cord, it actually leads into the second crewman at the bottom of the composition. We'll get to him in a second, which is really cool, just keeping them all united as if they weren't united enough coming from 6Beak in the middle of the composition. Those rings around his beak there also hooking onto his heart, bleeding out, which is really cool. I really just love that color of his blood there. And that is the first henchman, Starving Serpent. Moving to the bottom of the composition, like I said, 6Beak has a tongue coming out of this beak, and it's actually creating a giant tongue monster. This is the big guy, the brute of the gang, and he is a absolute consumer. One thing I love about this tongue monster is you can see this really big mouth at the bottom of the composition. His gums fill up half the size of his mouth there, and he has these really small teeth in the middle, which is super funny. He's bleeding from the top of the tongue with those rings going down all the way down into his mouth, which is another really cool detail. And he also is a very sick color, which is really nice in contrast to this really bright blue and other characters within this piece. And I forgot to mention his name. Super Salivator is his name. And lots of really cool details within him as well. Literally, not metaphorically, is lots of bones of his victims here. You can see like a femur there, leg bone there, same thing. Skull popping out the side here. And you can also see the Starving Serpent's spinal cord within him. Maybe the Starving Serpent was one of his victims turned henchman as well. Who knows? We have 2 blue eyeballs here. And you can see his fist holding a tube here. Is it a smoking device? No, it's a harpoon, which leads us into 6Beak's third henchman here in the corner, Spike Sting. If you couldn't tell already, every henchman has an SS name. Just to reiterate, Spike Sting, Super Salivator, Starving Serpent. Very spiky, and you can see that device in the Super Salivator's mouth is actually a harpoon, which is sticking into Spike Sting there. And he's a very interesting henchman. He's just kind of like the grunt of the gang. He's certainly not the most important, but he definitely plays a role. And you can see no one can touch him with those really sick spikes all over his body there. And he actually has this internal ring, which is like his mouth. You can see his mouth in pink there with all his teeth, creating the center point of the composition of his body. This really blue circular shape with 2 eyeballs coming out of it. You can see there's rings around him going into the Salivator as well as himself, up and around and looping around. Very interesting henchman, super dangerous. One thing about these 3 henchmen that I talked about, the last one does not have in common, is they don't really have any weapons. They kind of in and of themselves are weapons. The serpent has 2 mouths, very dangerous. The Super Salivator, as you can see, is the brute. His sheer mass and strength and consumption ability is his power. The really spiky, untouchable build of Spike Sting. But lastly, let's talk about 6Beak's 4th member, his right-hand man, Stinky Slinger. He's actually coming from this beak that's snapped open here, creating this really misty, stinky, gunslinging, weapon-wielding henchman. And he is probably one of the most dangerous henchmen on this team. He's got this really cool-looking Western-style pistol with this really crazy extended sight. His body is very malleable, so foes have a really hard time doing any damage, if anything at all, to this guy. Down here, he has a really cool spiky baseball bat, which he wields as a secondary. This really cool looking rectangular mouth, blue eye, and to match his gun and bat, this spiky hat, which he rocks for swag purposes pieces, of course. And there you have the 4 henchmen of 6 Beak himself. This piece had a lot of lore in it. In a lot of pieces I create, I don't particularly have a lot of lore. It kind of is just chaotic awesomeness. This one had a lot of thought to it. If you guys, of course, want prints of this piece, in the description down below is my imprint store. Leave a comment down below which henchman is your favorite, or maybe 6 Beak's your favorite. And also leave a like if you guys did enjoy this video. If you made it this far, I really appreciate you for sticking around and enjoying my work. And if you would consider subscribing, that would really help me out a lot. I will catch you guys every week, if not 2 weeks, so stay tuned for new videos on super unique and sick pieces. And I will see you guys in the next one. Peace.